Hi everybody, this is the second part of chapter 31. So I'm picking up here. I leave Offglen at the corner. I'll see you later, she says, and we've got that lovely casual relationship between them now, which is very friendly by comparison to the prescribed language that they used to use. She glides away along the sidewalk and I go up towards the house. There's Nick, hat askew, and of course that's his message. Today he doesn't even look at me, and we have to ask the question why, and there's quite a lot of questions about why he's behaving in this way in this section, and we wonder whether there isn't kind of some sort of sinister foreboding going on. So today he doesn't even look at me. He must have been waiting for me, though, to deliver his silent message, because as soon as he knows I've seen him, he gives the whirlwind, that's the car, one last swipe with the chamois and walks briskly off towards the garage door. And so, again, we just have these kind of various questions. Why is he behaving like this on this way? I walk along the gravel towards the slabs of overgreen lawn. Serena Joy is sitting under the willow tree in her chair, cane propped at her elbow. Her dress is crisp, cool cotton. For her it's blue, watercolour, not this red of mine that sucks in heat and blazes with it at the same time. Her profile's towards me. She's knitting. How can she bear to touch the wool in this heat? That's possible, but possibly her skin's gone numb. Possibly she feels nothing, like a former scolded. And here again we just have this constant reminder of Serena Joy's age and her kind of physical withering that she's going through, that links often to the floral imagery that we see linked between Serena Joy's garden and Offred. I lower my eyes to the path, glide by her, hoping to be invisible, knowing I'll be ignored, but not this time. And like so many other things that we've had in this chapter, it feels like we are in for these changes. So we've had a change in her relationship with the commander, a change in her relationship with Offglen. We hear about all of these changes and how Gilead has happened, and so now we're getting this change in their relationship. Offred, she says. I pause, uncertain, because of course we know that Serena Joy said she doesn't want to have anything to do with her. Yes, you. I turn towards her with my blinkered sight. Come over here, I want you. And we have all of that kind of commanding language, those imperatives that Serena Joy uses. I walk over to the grass and stand before her, looking down. You can sit, she says. Here, take the cushion. I need you to hold this wool. And so we have that kind of concession. She allows her to sit, and then she gets her to hold the wool skein on her hand so that she can wind it properly. She's got a cigarette, the ashtrays on the lawn beside her, and a cup of something, tea or coffee. It's too damn close in here. You need a little air, she says. I sit, putting down my basket down. Strawberries again, chicken again. I note the swear word, something new, and that damn that Serena Joy wouldn't use because she's constantly presenting that kind of idea of her being very pious. She fits this skein of wool over my two outstretched hands and starts winding, and we have this lovely quote with, again, Margaret Atwood's very cleverly constructed similes. I am leashed. It looks like manacled, cobwebbed. That's closer. And so we have, as Serena Joy winds the wool around her hands in order to make it so that she can knit it, we have this idea that Offred is leashed like a dog. And so we have that, again, that animal imagery that's often used to do with the handmaids, but this idea of her being controlled or trapped even, manacled, which is to be kind of tied up. And then she corrects it and she says she's cobwebbed, and that's closer. And I think that's a really perceptive thought that Offred has, in this moment because Serena Joy is trapping her in a cobweb and she's the spider, and this is this plan that she's about to reveal. The wool is grey and has absorbed moisture from the air. It's like a wetted baby blanket and smells faintly of damp sheet. At least my hands are getting lanolines, which is the oil from the wool that will moisturise her hand. Serena Joy whines, the cigarette in the corner of her mouth, and we have that lovely contrast between this very kind of domestic female activity of knitting and the kind of taboo illicit behaviour of having a cigarette, which of course has been banned. Smouldering, so the cigarette smouldering, sending out tempting smoke. She winds slowly and with difficulty because of her gradually crippling hands, but with determination. Perhaps the knitting for her involves a kind of willpower. Maybe it even hurts. Maybe it's been medically prescribed. 10 rows a day of plain, 10 of pearl. Though she must do more than that. I see those evergreen trees and geometric boys and girls in a different light. Remember, that's what she knits on these scarves that get sent off to the angels on the front line, apparently. Evidence of her stubbornness, but not altogether despicable. And so we have this pain that we see Serena Joy going through in this activity, which is her kind of potentially her ritualized activity as she's kind of doing this domestic chore that gets her ready for being a mother, perhaps. And then we return to this fragmented narrative. We've had a glimpse of Moira, now we've got a glimpse of Offred's mother. My mother did not knit or anything like it. But whenever she would bring things back from her cleaners, her good blouses, winter coats, she'd save up the safety pins and make them into a chain. Then she'd pin the chain somewhere, her bed, the pillow, the chair back, the oven mitt in the kitchen, so she wouldn't lose them. Then she'd forget about them. And of course we have that lovely kind of humour with Offred's mother. She would come back upon them here and there in the house, the houses, tracks of her present, remnants of some lost intention, like signs on a road that turns out to lead nowhere, throwbacks of domesticity. And of course we have those domestic tasks. No matter how much of a second wave feminist you are, there is always this realm of domesticity and the female. Well then, says Serena Joy, she stops winding, leaving me, my hands still garlanded with animal hair. And of course a garland is floral imagery, but you know, she's got this wrapped around her, so she's trapped. So Serena Joy and says, takes the cigarette end from her mouth to butt it out. Nothing yet? I know what she's talking about. There are not many subjects that could be spoken of between us. That's not much common ground, except for one mysterious chancy thing. No, I say, nothing. Too bad, she says. It's hard to imagine her with a baby, but the Nathers would take care of it mostly, and of course they are, again, like the rest of the household, waiting to take on this child, and they would take on the role of the nanny. She'd like me pregnant, though, over and done with, out of the way. No more humiliating sweaty tangles, no more flesh triangles under her starry canopy of silver flowers. Peace and quiet. I can't imagine she'd want such good luck for me for any other reason. Your time's running out, she says. Not a question, a matter of fact, and of course also an implied threat. Yes, I say, neutrally. She's lighting another cigarette, fumbling with the lighter. Definitely her hands are getting worse. It would be a mistake to offer to do it for her. She'd be offended. A mistake to notice weakness in her. And of course we have the implication, which of course Offred can't say, and doesn't even allow herself to think, that Serena Joy's time is also running out. Whatever this is, we suspect it's a kind of form of arthritis. It's crippling her to the point where she won't be able to do anything to look after a child at all. Maybe he can't, she says, and we have this very dangerous comment by Serena Joy. I don't know what she means. Does she mean the commander or God? If it's God, she could say won't. Either way, it's heresy. It's only women who can't, who remain stubbornly closed, damaged, defective. And of course, you know that that's the biblical precedent, that it's women that are infertile, not men. No, I say, maybe he can't. And this is, of all of the dangerous conversations that Offred has had recently, this is perhaps the most dangerous. I look up at her. She looks down. We've got that position of power. It's the first time we've looked into each other's eyes in a long time since we've met. The moment stretches out between us, bleak and level. She's trying to see whether or not I'm up to reality. And so this kind of look in Serena Joy for the truthfulness, to see whether Offred is ready for what she's about to offer. Maybe, she says, holding the cigarettes, which she's failed to light, maybe you should try it another way. And of course the you there is that this is Offred's job, Offred's responsibility. Does she mean on all fours? And we have that morbid humour. What other way, I say? I must keep serious. Another man, she says. You know I can't, I say, careful not to let my irritation show. It's against the law. You know the penalty. And so, just like the conversations that she has with the commander and indeed with Offglen when they're out on their walks, Offred has the most to lose in these situations. You know the penalty, which of course is death. Yes, she says, she's ready for this. She's thought it through, and again we have that idea that she's planned it, just like the commander has planned his meetings with Offred. I know you can't officially, but it's done. Women do it frequently, all the time, and of course we know that because that's what the doctor offered Offred in the waiting room. With doctors, you mean, I say, remembering the sympathetic brown eyes, the gloveless hand. Last time I went, it was a different doctor. Maybe someone caught the other one out, or a woman reported him. Not that they would take her word without evidence. And there's that sense of surveillance, and then just that reminder that like Islamic law that came into effect in Afghanistan just after Margaret Atwood had visited there, the evidence from a woman cannot be accepted unless there is some evidence to support it. Some do that, she says, her tone almost affable, friendly now, though distant, as if she were considering a choice of nail polish. That's how Warren did it, that's Janine. And so we get the suggestion then that that's how Warren got pregnant, by using the doctor. The wife knew, of course, and we have that kind of, we remember that when she went for the birthing ceremony at Warren's, we saw the house was very much a man of power, in fact higher status than Offred's commander, and so we have this idea that this men of power, there's a bit of a theme here of men being infertile. She pauses to let it sink in. I would help you, would make sure nothing went wrong. I think about this, not with a doctor, I say. No, she agrees. And for this moment at least, we are cronies, which is again in a gang, kind of people together, and we have that sense of collusion. This could be a kitchen table. It could be a date we're discussing, some girlish stratagem of ploys and flirtations. Sometimes they blackmail, and it doesn't have to be a doctor. It could be someone we trust. And of course the irony of trusting anyone in Gilead. Who, I say? I was thinking of Nick, and this is the trap, she says. Her voice is almost soft. He's been with us a long time. He's loyal. I could fix it with him. And so we've got the implication that because he's been there a long time, he's loyal, that he's trustworthy, which of course is something that's really challenging in Gilead. And then Serena Joy's kind of I could fix it with him. There's some kind of favours and debts, and there's some collusion then between Serena Joy and Nick. We also know that there's collusion between Nick and the commander because he gives the messages. And so Nick then becomes this enormously complex character. We've got no idea what side he's on. So that's who does her little black market errands for her. Is this what he gets in return? What about the commander, I say? Well, she says, with firmness, no, more than that, a clenched look, like a purse snapping shut. We won't tell him, will we? And we have that secret. This idea, again, very important quote here, hangs between us, almost visible, almost palpable, which is that, you could see it. Heavy, formless, dark. And then this is this key tension that we have in Gilead. Collusion of a sort, betrayal of a sort. So that idea of colluding, of unity, of loyalty, and then at the same time it's also a form of betrayal. She does want that baby. And again, we have another key tension, which is that idea of hope, and hope in itself presenting danger. It's a risk, I say, more than that. It's my life on the line, but that's where it'll be sooner or later, one way or another, whether I do or I don't. We both know this, and of course, so she then weighs the odds. You might as well, she says, which is what I think. All right, I say, yes. And so she agrees then to try and get pregnant by Nick. She leans forward. So having agreed, Serena Joy kind of sweetens the deal somehow. Maybe I could get something for you, she says, because I've been good. Something you want, she adds, wheedling almost. What's that, I say? I can't think of anything I truly want that she's likely or able to give me. And of course, Serena Joy is very, very spiteful here, and because of the way that Offred's life has changed, she can't see it coming, so she's not emotionally prepared. A picture, she says, as if offering me some juvenile treat, an ice cream, a trip to the zoo. I look at her again, puzzled. Of her, she says, your little girl, but only maybe. She knows where they've put her then, where they're keeping her. She's known all along. Something chokes in my throat. The bitch not to tell me. Bring news, any news at all. Not even to let on. She's made of wood or iron. She can't imagine. I can't say this. I can't lose sight, even of so small a thing. I can't let go of this hope. I can't speak. And so we have this innocence and this pain, and then this realization that actually she can't be angry because she may just get to see a picture of her daughter. She's actually smiling coquettishly, which is innocently even. There's a hint of her former small screen mannequin's allure flickering over her face, momentary static. It's too damn hot for this, don't you think? She says. She lifts the wool from my two hands where I've been holding it all this time. Then she takes the cigarette she's been fiddling with and a little awkwardly presses it into my hand, closing my fingers around it. Find yourself a match, she says. They're in the kitchen. You ask Rita for one. You can tell her I said so. Only one, though, she says roguishly. We don't want to ruin your health, and we have this kind of allusion to this reward, this small reward that she's been given, this kind of soggy cigarette that Serena Joy's been fiddling with, that she's allowed to have, and they don't want to ruin your health. This kind of revolting irony, but actually that is exactly kind of what Gilead is engaged with these women. All right, that is it for this chapter. More to follow.